What's going on, everybody? JHow here, and it's time for our first look at Diablo Immortal. From my perspective, Diablo has been a huge part of my gaming history, from Diablo 1 to Diablo 2, Diablo 3. It's given me many paths, and now Diablo Immortal coming out, we know there's a lot of controversy around this game, so I want to talk about some of those things, but I want to talk overall about the game as a whole and answer some of the top questions about Diablo Immortal and give you my thoughts as well in terms of my view, because things are looking pretty good. So let's get into it. All right, so there's no conversation you can have about Diablo Immortal without mentioning the fact that it is a mobile game. That was the biggest controversy the minute it was announced, and it will remain that way. So I want to talk about that first and foremost, because the first things that come to your mind: what does it play like on mobile? Does it feel like Diablo? Does it even feel like Diablo? Now, for me, I'm not a huge mobile gamer. I've played things like Candy Crush in the past, or some random games, or some tower defense games to kill time while I'm on a plane. That's pretty much it in terms of what I do for mobile gaming, unless I'm playing Hearthstone. Anyways, so the number one question I got is, does it feel like Diablo? When I was on stream, everybody kept saying, does it feel like Diablo? What does it feel like playing on the phone? And so I wanted to talk about that first. So the first thing that comes to mind is Diablo sounds, Diablo sights. How does it feel in terms of, like, graphically? Does it look the same? Does it look like Diablo? Does it play like Diablo? Does it sound like Diablo? And the very first thing that captured my mind was the lighting, the reflections, the sound, the music, all of those things that we've known from Diablo, although the lighting is fairly new. But in terms of the sounds, the grittiness, for me, Diablo 3, I love every Diablo that's been out. I think every game has had its flaws, of course, but Diablo 3, the personalities and things like that kind of put me off at times, but overall, I enjoyed the game. I've played a ton of it, right? But Diablo Immortal kind of captures that same essence that you get in the music. The music is great. It fits everything. It's dramatic. It's beautiful. It's epic. It's calming. It is everything that you want from that. The lighting is something new that I didn't expect to kind of say, hey, you know what? This is something that stands out to me. But the lighting and the reflections actually make this game look really good on the phone. The vibrancy of the colors, which look much better on the phone than most people are presenting on stream, because the way you have to stream it and capture it. The vibrancy of the colors is great. The graphics, it's like, everybody, is it Diablo 3 again? Is it Diablo 3 on phone? No, it's not Diablo 3 on the phone. It is kind of its own being. Now, there is some crossovers because there's a lot of reused monsters and spells and abilities and animations that you're going to get. And my first thought is, if that's the case, is that the primary focus of Diablo 3 to be on the mobile? And to be fair, it didn't feel like I was playing Diablo 3 on my phone. It felt like I was playing a new Diablo game with Diablo 3 elements. And for what it's worth, it was kind of the same way when I first picked up the beta for Diablo 3, is that it still felt like Diablo. So if you're wondering, is it like Diablo? Yes. Is it too similar to Diablo 3? Not really. Some of you will dig really deep and say, yes it is, because a lot of the monsters are the same. You're using the abilities. But it doesn't feel the same. It feels like Diablo 3, the same way that Diablo felt like Diablo 2, in the same way that Diablo 2, although movement was much better, felt like Diablo 1. It felt like Diablo. And I'm not just fanboying and trying to toot the horn of this. It literally captured me within the first 15 minutes. Most games that you play, you'll spend an hour or two, and then you're like, all right, now I'm into it. For me, I was into it from the very beginning. From the time I got off there, because there are familiar sights and sounds, it actually felt really good. It felt like Diablo. Things that I've enjoyed so far, outside of the music and the lighting, which is even better when you get in dungeons and things like that, and caves, is the voice lines. We don't have the full-on kind of arrogant sounding characters that we had in Diablo 3. They've changed some things up. It sounds different. The sounds in terms of, you know, the combat and things like that still sound gritty. That is what I want from my Diablo. Gritty sounds. I want it to feel dark. I want it to feel combative. I need those things. And I'm playing on my phone, and they designed it, I guess, to where it actually sounds good to be open. I'm playing on an iPhone 10. I'm not playing on one of the last two generations. I'm playing on an iPhone 10. I wish I was playing it on an iPad. I think it'd be more enjoyable. But I'm playing on an iPhone. It sounds great. It looks great. The vibrancy is there. So that very first concern that a lot of people have, it feels like Diablo. Now, we're going to get into some further questions, but I need to remind you, this is a free-to-play game, and we'll talk about the end game and stuff soon. But if you are on the fence and you are not one of those people that are dead set on just shunning it because it's mobile, it is free. So if you're going to at least try and critique it, at least know the fact that you'll be able to download it for free. And if you enjoy the campaign, it doesn't matter what the rest of it is, but you'll be able to enjoy it and then make a new, more educated decision. There's a lot of people that maybe played it at BlizzCon, but now here's your chance when it officially comes out to say, you know what, maybe I've changed my mind. And if you don't, that's up to you, and that's okay. All right, so we talked about it feels like Diablo, but what does it really play like on mobile? Because this is very different. It's not the point and click hack and slash that we're used to. The hack and slash is very much there, but it's a much more methodical pace. I think most people would consider Diablo 3 kind of went to the extreme in terms of like how fast things get. And definitely as things went on, how crazy Diablo 3 got in terms of numbers and how fast paced it was. And a lot of that is dialed back a lot in Diablo Immortal. It plays well. The abilities that you use, they have combinations that you can use, which I honestly didn't even know about until I started seeing other people do it. And then I started figuring it out and seeing the way certain things combo together. Felt really cool. The fact that there's ultimate ability that you can use to kind of emphasize things. It brings new refreshing elements to Diablo that I don't think that we've really had. Sure, I can throw, you know, a zombie thing in there and, you know, pull everything together with the piranhas and then toss some stuff in there and then just get massive AoE damage. Everybody knows that's a combo, but there's actually abilities that are designed to work together, which I think is really cool to see that they've now implemented new things like that. They're starting to break through on some different stuff. It feels good. Like, I don't feel like I'm having any trouble playing the game. The joystick thing on the side, you can put your thumb anywhere in that little quadrant. It's good. The abilities on the right, I don't have to watch them. Like, it took me maybe 30 minutes. I've never played a game like this outside of Final Fantasy on my phone, which I didn't play for too many hours. But I've never played a game like this, and I didn't have to look to find my abilities. After 30 minutes, it was just natural. I mean, really felt that way pretty easily. So then I could focus on the gameplay. I could focus at looking around and following and things like that. There's navigation tools that you can turn on or off if you don't want to be guided through. It's kind of open world since it is basically an MMO. There's so many different things that I started to gradually find myself enjoying the more that I played it, which I don't think I was consciously thinking about these things as they were happening, but then it clicked at some point where I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not looking at my hands at all. Like, I haven't touched my fingers at all. Because it's basically unlocking the skills over time, you basically just add one at a time over time, the same way that you would with other Diablo stuff, and therefore it's easier to adapt and it's much more simple, I guess. But it felt really good in terms of actual gameplay. It felt smooth. The controls were really good. The gameplay was Diablo. I can't speak enough about how surprised I was with how good this game felt. And I'm hoping that other people, when this game comes to a more public beta state, potentially if they have that, and then when it eventually releases, that they have similar feelings to me. As like, you don't realize the things that you're doing at first until they happen, and you're like, wait a minute. Like, this is something that is making the game more enjoyable for me, and I think they've done a lot of those things to make that happen. Then we think about some of the things when it comes to abilities. It's basically just cooldown management. If you have an ability that uses arcane power if you're a wizard, or fury if you're a barbarian, it's dedicated to that ability and not tied to all of your abilities. You don't have to micromanage all these different things to kind of make it easier for you. So for that, I mean, a lot of things just felt better. If this was PC, we'd be having a different conversation. But when it comes to mobile, implementing these things to make it more enjoyable, I think are all right there in the palm of your hand. Yeah, we'll go with that. All right, so depth of the game is something that's very important to me. One thing that's been a staple of Diablo for 20 plus years now is the replayability. What is the replayability going to be like? Now, on the alpha, we're capped at level 45. With the in-game cap, eventually will be 60. So right now, it still feels like I'm investing a lot of time just leveling my characters, which is a good thing. If you can tell me I can invest a decent amount of time into leveling my characters on a game that I get for free, I'm down. Sign me up for that. But then we start to look at the depth, and this was something that I wasn't sure. What separates it from Diablo 3? Is it Diablo 3 again? So my first initial thought was, I'm just going to play and then I'll gradually learn as I go along. As you start to open the character menus and they start to reveal different things to you over time to kind of bring your attention, instead of overloading you all at once, you start to see, you look at your stats, you look at your attributes, and next thing you know, you've got some new stats that you're not used to seeing. It's a little bit more than strength, armor, dexterity, vitality, things like that. Some of those are still very much in the game. That's just part of the genre. But then you start seeing things like willpower and fortitude, which we know what some of these do naturally if we've played any similar games. But then you click on those and you start to see that it starts to affect things like armor penetration or armor in general. So it's not just armor, it's now armor penetration. And the fact that there's PvP in the game, some of these things are going to be very important, both PvE and PvP oriented. Then after I got through the base stats, I'm like, well, what are these? There's a more attributes tool. So now all of a sudden I'm looking at this, and then some of those cooldown reduction, crit hit, crit chance, all those things that you're used to seeing are there. But now there's like different elements. So it's separating itself from Diablo 3 without feeling completely foreign from the action RPG scene and Diablo in general. And so it makes it so that it's not identical, and there's different things that you have to learn and balance and things like that. So right away, the stats were different, and that felt cool. So then it's like, what about in-game content? What things can I expect as the game goes on? And so what I found when I started to get there and I got to West March and different areas and I started seeing different things that you could do, there's Elder Rifts, which are like rifts that you're familiar with where they have rewards at the end. There's challenge rifts. There's a bounty board that you can go and do bounties in different places, which we know are things that you've done in Diablo 3 because bounties are not new, rifts are not new, challenge rifts are not new, but it's kind of a different take on these things. There's even a legendary rift, which for most people are going to worry, is it pay to win? This is one thing where I think they limit things like that because you're limited to one per day and you have to get a shard to be able to do this. And then I started going to the vendors around there, and then I see that there's different types of crafting materials. There's runes. There's more crafting materials or different types of currency that is relevant to different vendors that are not necessarily pay to win, but just natural world elements. So I didn't feel like I was going to be kept on a leash when I was at the end of the game. There's not even enough time to explore that yet. Anybody that says that they've done it probably haven't done it. And then we're not even at full max level cap. So I start going and it's like the wheels start turning. Just how deep does this go? How many things are there going to be? And right now I am very optimistic seeing just how much they've put into it, because you can see kind of the direction that it's going, but we're not quite able to do all of those things yet. So I think when I look at in-game content, the replayability is the number one factor for me. So the replayability of this situation feels really high, and the fact that there's going to be a lot to do. And for some people, it might actually be too much to do. And then they're thinking, well, I can't keep up. But for diehard Diablo players, you want more things to do instead of just running rift after rift after rift after rift looking for those perfect items, which will probably still be the primary focus, as is most Diablo games, is that endless grind in terms of gear. But for this situation, it really feels like we're going through the process of finding new things to kind of expand on, and it feels good. It actually feels like we're getting much more into a broader area because it's more MMO based, because there's PvP, because there's all of these different elements. Dare I say, this might be the best Diablo endgame content we're going to have? All right, the big one, because everybody knows the model for mobile games, especially games like Diablo that are promising that it's free to play. A free-to-play game doesn't just make money by doing nothing. You have to have some monetization factor to the game. And most of the time, especially games, it feels like it's pay to win. Now, while that wasn't fully presented, we have heard from Blizzard in their blog, they are trying to make sure that that is not the case. That is not the case. Now, I believe them. I've seen it. They have a battle pass, which almost every game right now has a battle pass that you can get towards some progression system. There's a free version, and then there's a paid version. You still get all the stuff in the free one, but you get some bonus stuff in the paid one. Now, that's going to be okay with me. Battle passes is a way for you to contribute just how much you want to play without having a full-time commitment. If you're telling me I need to pay $10 for this item and $7 for that item and $20 for this item to do better at the game, yeah, we're going to have a problem. I've seen that model to where it's like, oh, you want this skin? Here's $20. I don't want that to be the case. I don't really know because the battle pass is locked, but in terms of what we want to expect, most of the time we have to figure out, and I personally don't see this information yet, is does it pay to get through the end game faster? Now, the regular game and the campaign, it's just a straight playthrough. You don't have to pay for any of that, but it's the end game content. The diehard Diablo fans that actually care about the end game, and they don't want to be outpaced by somebody paying a premium that they can't pay, and therefore they get to be ahead because they've paid to be ahead. That's pay to win. Pay to win in developers' perspective most of the time is, we don't actually keep you from getting that, so therefore it's not pay to win. But the reality is they're paying for the speed at which you get it, and the more you get, the further away you get, and then you start to create this distance of, okay, well, they got it a little faster and they keep going and you're trying to catch up, but they outpace you. That's what I'm afraid of. I don't know if that's going to be the case here. I think Blizzard knows this. I think they're going to try and limit it as much as possible. They still have to be able to make money, which I think the battle pass will be huge for that. So maybe there's some stuff that they have planned. The model, I'm just as curious as you all, but in terms of what I can see and the things that I've read, I think we're in a good model. Fingers crossed, because we don't know how things change. This is the alpha, but as with everything else, I'm optimistic. This is the one where I'm more cautiously optimistic because I've seen that it's not pay to win. Yes, you're not paying to stop us from getting that content. We're paying to be able to get it faster or something like that. And some people will perceive that differently. So for that reason, I am cautiously optimistic because things sound good right now. We'll see how it goes. But given how well everything else is done, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt for now, and we'll see when this game is released. All right, here's a big one. Is there controller support? Now, right now, there is no native controller support, and this is important to me. I'll say this. The first day I streamed this, I played for 6.5 hours straight. No fatigue, none. The controls felt good, and I was fine with holding my phone for an extended period of time. Not only that, but I had an entire HDMI converter cable, plus it charged in, and I had weight on one end, as opposed to just the casual person that's probably sitting there with their phone unplugged chilling. So for me, I actually didn't feel fatigue in that time, so that was cool for me. And most people probably aren't going to sit down and play for 6 hours at a time. But there are diehard people that would love to put that amount of time into a game that they love. They'd love to sit there and play it for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. Most people probably will pick it up for 15 minutes to an hour at most, if they're lucky. I know most people have busy schedules. I'm fortunate enough to where I do get to play for this period of time. But there is going to be a group of people that will want to play extended play periods. And to Blizzard's credit, and what they've done with Diablo Immortal is that they've given a reason to sit and play this game for multiple hours. It's that well done to where you can be engrossed in the game and have in-game content. I didn't feel like I was playing a mobile game. I felt like I was playing a game that I just happened to be playing on my phone. So Blizzard, you've done yourselves a favor by creating a game that I want to play for hours on end on my phone or iPad. Yes, you've done it, okay? But I want to be able to prop up my phone somewhere, grab a controller, and save my poor little neck. My neck after 6.5 hours, now mind you, I was streaming, so I couldn't just lay back in my chair and kick my feet up like I probably was the night before. But most people also will be sitting on their couch in their bed, maybe just sitting at their computer. Some of you will be sneaking in at work. So you probably don't need a controller for that. But for those of us that want to sit down and play for extended period of times, or people that just find controllers more comfortable, please bring us native support. I don't want to get into the third-party stuff and all that stuff because I know it's out there, but I'm talking about native support for your general player and your viewer base that doesn't quite go into the technical side of things of getting that. I'm talking about your regular everyday person that would like to grab a controller and do that. I'm hoping that somewhere down the road there is controller support. It would be one of the most fantastic things for me to put the game, prop it up on a stand somewhere, and be able to game and save my neck. It's natural to hold your hands lower and your arms down, so please bring us controller support. All right, in closing, you're basically going to hear me recap a lot of what I said, but I'm going to keep it short. Do I understand why people were frustrated that they got a mobile announcement, there was no Diablo 4? Absolutely. Did I care as much as probably the other people? Probably not. Was I extremely skeptical about what it would be like playing Diablo on a mobile phone? Absolutely. I could not wrap my head around something that I have grown so natural to over 20 plus years of just clicking and typing and spamming buttons, literally spamming buttons for the sake of hours and hundreds and thousands of hours that I have played Diablo games for my entertainment. But here I am making a video with my first impressions that I'm sold. I'm sold. It took me about 15 minutes to enjoy the game, and it took me about 4 more hours to put it down in my first playtest. Then I came out the next day and I streamed it for 6.5 hours. Now, am I saying these words because I'm a streamer, because I'm trying to do this? I don't think so. I legitimately picked up this game with zero expectations, some skepticism, and I thought to myself, am I going to feel like I'm playing Diablo? Which was our first question. And I absolutely felt like I was playing Diablo, just happened to be on my phone. I did not feel like I was playing mobile Diablo. I felt like I was playing Diablo on my phone. And hopefully that makes sense, because it did not feel like I was playing something that was completely foreign to me. So I hope that a lot of you give it a chance on mobile the same way I have. I know that I'll be playing it going forward, and there's just a lot to it. The depth of the game, it felt there. I want to be able to play more and discover more, but reactionary wise, this is how I felt about the game. It just felt good. It felt good. So I'm excited to be able to play Diablo Immortal. Yes, even if it's a mobile game. This has been a long review, but at the same time, I feel like from somebody that has played Diablo 1 on a computer, Diablo 1 on a PlayStation 1, some of you don't even know that that exists, to hours, years of my life on Diablo 2, sitting in IRC chats, looking for Stone of Jordans to be sold. All of these things that a lot of people, the diehards, know what I'm talking about. To Diablo 3 and even being a Diablo 3 YouTuber once upon a time, I believe that this game has promise, and I hope that we all get to enjoy it together. I'll be making some more Diablo content down the road, so if you want to subscribe to the channel, notice I'm not plugging this at the beginning, I'm plugging it at the end, because I want you to understand I am doing this. I am a Diablo player. I have been for so long, so I'm giving you my honest Diablo player perspective, not my embellished streamer YouTuber perspective. I'm literally a Diablo player, and I have no purpose to say this. I mean, maybe if I end up making videos, sure, but from a Diablo player, I can tell you I'm actually sold. I am. So I hope to see you guys around there as well with me in Sanctuary, maybe down the road, and if not, because it's an MMO, we'll be seeing all kinds of people everywhere else. I'm excited to see how this develops, and I hope that Blizzard puts it on the right path and we get the game that we've all been waiting for.